VTuber lore is, let's be honest, it's mostly a joke. People constantly make fun of the fact that these VTubers will have super badass backstories and then be themselves playing a horror game or melt their brain trying to figure out a basic puzzle. But that lore is still a good part of the appeal. Not only does it provide an excuse for a sick design, it also adds just enough of a wall for the viewer to disassociate the anime figure with the person who's actually behind it. That separation has clearly been a massive appeal for millions of people around the world, and for those who are too shy or nervous to show their face online, to still provide entertainment for the masses. My water's been in the shot the whole time. Oops. However, what I find fun about the lore is when there's a large group that all canonically share a world and then trying to reconcile all those stories together. For example, did you know that Nijisanji's original lore was that it all takes place in a high school? I don't know how we got from that to vampires, deranged cat girls, Bara elf maids, and whatever the hell Debeater is, but I'm not gonna complain about it. Now, I don't have the time, energy, or Japanese proficiency to go through all of Nijisanji JP's intros and try and figure out how the hell that happened, but I can do it for Nijisanji EN. With only 14 VTubers and a vague fantasy theme, you think this would be pretty easy. I implore you to look at the length of this video. I've lost my mind trying to figure this out. There is nothing that I can say to prepare you for what you're about to hear. Anyways, here is your guide to the canonical world of Nijisanji EN. And just to clarify, this is pretty much exclusively taken from the debut streams, as I believe that is the most canon and official lore that we can actually rely on. Obviously, we'll be starting with Lazulite, and what better way to start than with Big PP herself, Pomu. Her story starts us off simply enough, simple being a generous descriptor. Pomu is a fairy living in virtual Neverland, which is apparently a single island on a planet that is otherwise just ocean and also exists in a computer. But she's also somehow real, and since people have stopped believing in fairies, she's been losing her magical powers and had to take up a job as an office lady to compensate. This office lady position actually comes up again, but we'll get there. So to get more people to believe in fairies, Pomu spent way too much time on the internet and discovered that there's even a fetish for She also became a weeb, found out VTubers were getting successful, and decided to become one so she could plot a course towards world domination. Okay, that last bit was quite a bit of a jump, but okay. But she also does a Donald Duck impression.
Please hold your applause.
Next comes Iluna, a solar sky dragon and a dragon tamer who is so old that she's met God. So we can go ahead and just add God to the list of things that are canon to the Nijisanji EN world. And you may be wondering why a dragon is taming other dragons. It kind of feels like that Pluto and Goofy vibe. Well, as Iluna points out, some weirdos put their kids on a leash, so touché. And that's pretty much it. Iluna doesn't really have a lot in her debut, but we'll get some more later on thanks to her little sister. In the meantime, we have one last member of Lazulite to get through, and of course it is none other than Miss Egg herself, Finana. A tropical mermaid the age of Fruit Loop, she's a royal descendant of the dragon sea god Yugu. Originally tasked with preserving the coral reef, she was one day told of our human civilization by her fish friends. Eventually, she said goodbye to her finned friends and made her way onto land in order to study us humans. And again, that's it. As you can tell, Lazulite didn't really go too hard on their lore. In fact, we can't even be sure if Pomu's home of Virtual Neverland is the same world as Iluna and Finana, or if she exists in the computers in their world. Now, there is something to be said that the first 3 Niji EN songs all allude to these characters existing in a virtual world, but is it a mirror world to ours? Did somebody from our world create it? If that's true, who is the god that Iluna met? I doubt we're going to get any answers to this, but let's move on to Obsidia and see if that helps. Finally, more full-on lore. Thanks to Selene, we're gonna learn a fair bit about this world. First off, Selene is canonically a little shit. She enjoys picking on her older sister and wreaking havoc on the humans. Unlike her sister, Selene is a lunar sky dragon and also confirms that, if they want to, both Selene and Illyra can switch between human and dragon forms at will. Selene is also a dragon tamer and has quite a lot of dragons at her command that she uses to help her wreak the aforementioned havoc. She also is a dragon racer and must be pretty damn good at it considering she throws away all her trophies. For some reason, this also confirms that Petra and Rosemi are both dragon racers too. Selene also fully confirms that their world is not ours, saying that,
I come from a place very similar to your world, but instead of rabbits on the moon, we have dragons.
And considering the fact that we finally see Pomu alongside all the others, we can assume that they all exist in the world of Virtual Neverland. Or Pomu can hop dimensions, which has much scarier implications. Though somehow this isn't unheard of in the world of Virtual Neverland. Selene actually reveals that she's only half dragon, and that her dad was isekai'd from our universe into theirs and met her mom. And while this doesn't mean too much right now, it does have some interesting implications for later on. Man, there's a lot to unpack here. So to recap, we now know that everyone exists together in what we'll now just refer to as Virtual Neverland. This world mirrors ours to a certain degree, given that they have the same games and shows as us, and either exists in or shares our internet structure, which is how they're able to stream to us. Also, Selene casually mentioning she ate her twin.
Which was the day I ate my twin. Anyway.
Wait, but she was hatched from an egg. So does that... Oh. Okay. That was a lot. Hopefully Rosemi's won't be as nuts. Rosemi was a lonely rose maiden who wished for more of a human touch due to how many people liked to appreciate her looks but were too scared to ever come close. She often saw Pomu flying around and tending to the other flowers. One New Yorker bee later,
Buzz off, I'm flying over here.
Rosemi met up with Pomu and became a VTuber. Sorry, VTuber. And now acts as Pomu's intern in whatever office the two work in. Though I like to believe that it's in the stocks and contracts auction market. And thankfully, that's it. Now here's where we would go to the last member of Obsidia, but we're gonna have to hold off on that cute penguin for a bit, and you'll see why later. But that brings us to our next group, Etheria. Starting off with everyone's favorite fox mommy, Nina, we learn that she took this job thinking she didn't actually have to do anything. And honestly, yeah, fair enough. Though she eventually informs us that she used to be the Keeper of Luck for Heaven, which is apparently a place that you can work, and is a bureaucratic nightmare. And my worst nightmare, you can't drink there? She also says that God, yes, this is the second confirmation of God's existence, will sue her for slander if she's not careful with what she says about heaven. Nina also reveals that, at least for spirits/celestial beings whose splendor is too great for human eyes, they require someone to give them form, a drawing in this case, and will come in dreams or visions to inspire people to make said forms. Finally, she claims that the god who saved her life was Japanese, though she doesn't clarify if that's from being a fox to becoming a kitsune, kitsune to Keeper of Luck, or ex-Keeper of Luck to VTuber, but now we know that there might be multiple gods of Virtual Neverland, or that God is Japanese, and I don't know what to do with that information. Overall, Nina doesn't say too much, but does imply a lot about what's happening around Virtual Neverland. Also, she says honey a lot, and it gets me every time, so let's quickly move on to Millie.
In this vivid city of dreams, the endless pain is all I feel. No friends and I'm super empty. Someone help me.
I immediately regret this decision. Joking aside, Millie's lore starts with an original song that made me dredge up my Japanese knowledge to understand part of. I'm sure someone in the comments had translated it, but that's cheating. I'd like to tell you a story that many people have forgotten. A girl who can only remember her name. And then shit gets sad. Millie's song is the tale of her happy childhood, learning magic from her kind grandmother until one day, a group of villagers decide to attack and burn down their home, killing her grandmother. The villagers then took the young Millie and were about to burn her at the stake. Again, shit gets dark, before a mysterious black cat saves her from the flames with a devilish grin. The cat asks Millie to perform a pact with him, saving her life and giving her great powers, but dooming her to the underworld. Then we cut to this.
Nijisanji!
Which is probably the biggest fucking tonal shift we could have gotten. And it only gets weirder. Millie was wandering around the underworld when she saw Enna, spoilers, eating, and I shit you not, edibles. After trying Enna's Homu leaf parfait, she loves it so much that she magics herself out of hell and up to Earth, only to discover that her magic doesn't work there and now she's stuck in our world. Then, holy shit, another song. Millie, my god, so much effort put into this. I am honestly very, very impressed. This anime OP then informs us that, post getting stuck on Earth, Millie has been trying to find work, but despite everything, has found herself helpless, homeless, and alone. Honestly, I don't know how much of this song is lore, and how much of it is just a painful reflection of being in your 20s and current year, even down to becoming a content creator. This one hurt. But hey, I definitely watch. I've burned to death and formed a pact with a demon, but I got hooked on human food and now I'm stuck on Earth doing jobs I don't like, so I became a VTuber. Seems like a fun show. And now here's where things are gonna get interesting. And by interesting, I mean unhinged. It's stated several times that Millie came to Earth, like our Earth, one that seemingly has no magic. Well, we know that Virtual Neverland must have magic with all the fairies, dragons, and so on. And we know that people can travel between Virtual Neverland and our world thanks to Selen's dad, so it's not unreasonable to think that she may have magicked her way into our universe. But then she says this.
That's why I decided to crash on Elira's place.
Now what the fuck does that mean for us? Well, we could guess that maybe like how Nina lost most of her powers coming from heaven, Millie's magic came from being in the underworld, and coming back to Earth took it away. If that's the case, then we could possibly assume that Virtual Neverland is just the name of the whole universe and that their mirror world is still called Earth. Now, as the name Virtual implies, the secret could be that they're actually in our computers. This may have been obvious, but aside from the song's reference to it, we only really had one other reference to them being virtual. Homu initially calling it Virtual Neverland and showing herself in a monitor. It wasn't until Millie that we actually had another reference to this concept when she asks the world system to fix the bug of her intelligence score refusing to go up past a -3.
I also try increasing my intelligence, but for some reason it won't budge. Hello? World system? Can you please fix this bug? Thank you.
And now that we finally have two instances of this rhetoric, lots of things start to make a bit more sense. God is probably whoever programmed Virtual Neverland. He's likely Japanese. The heaven that Nina came from was likely our world, and the form that she needed to have made was a virtual avatar. Millie's underworld could have been the scrapped concept / trash can, and everyone that we've met, barring Nina and Selen's dad, is a program in the world. This also makes sense as to why Selen's dad would have access to all those games after being isekai'd. He just added them to the program. They share our internet because they exist inside of it. Again, most of this probably could have been said a lot sooner, but I wanted a little bit more evidence than just Homu on a screen. And then Enna muddies up that whole concept, so awesome. Long story short, Enna was a human on Earth, but was such a bitter asshole that after she dies in a way she can't remember, the divine beings send her to the underworld. While there, she becomes more of a shitter. So as a newer punishment, the divine beings bring her up to heaven and make her a bird to sing for everyone. Now she's trying to atone for her past and make the world a better place. If we're still operating under the same assumptions as before, we can actually assume that Enna's time as a human was actually her life as one in Virtual Neverland. The reason she can't remember her death was because she was actually removed from the main world and dropped into the trash can with Millie. After all the garbage code in the underworld started to corrupt her, the programmers, aka the divine beings, pulled her out to reprogram and remodel her into a virtual singer, kind of like a really high-end AI Vocaloid. The question here becomes, if people from our world can enter the world of Virtual Neverland, can the programs from Virtual Neverland enter ours? If we're assuming that heaven is our world and they brought Enna into heaven, does that mean that they brought her to life? Or is this just her interpretation of her becoming more public-facing and reacting with the real world more? I'm going to guess that it's her being made aware of our world and being under stricter control of the programmers as she becomes an outward-facing product. Like in the lore, you could see Enna merch around in our world and you could purchase her in some way, while the others just exist in Virtual Neverland and interact with us via the internet. Meanwhile, Reimu is dead, and she's known as the Ghost of Darkness for some reason that she can't remember. Wait, that's it? Oh, thank God. And thank you, Reimu. I was getting very tired. Huh? What do you mean there's another wave? Yes, the boys are back in town. And not only is this our biggest group yet, they all also come with their own lore videos. So we've got 5 new pieces of lore to help muddy up what little clarity we've been able to garner from all of this. Starting off with Luca.
Luca, who you ask? Look at these stats.
Luca, shut up and tell the story!
We're now introduced to a core concept of the Luxium lore that I currently have no idea how I'm going to reconcile with the rest. Time travel. See, Luca was a successful mafia boss from the year 1969. One day, while trying to help a man he believed was being mugged, he was mistaken by Mista, spoilers, as a thief and fled. Once he'd found himself backed into a corner, both he and Mista were suddenly sucked up by mysterious portals and shot forwards to the future. Upon arriving, Luca sees something saying Nijisanji. This instantly reminds him that he's going to be late to start his live stream. Now, if he's from the past, how does he know what a live stream is? How does he know he's supposed to start one? Hi there, editing Steven here. This is wrong. You see, somehow while writing and recording this, I forgot that Luca's debut story started with these lines.
This is it! Today is finally the day. Oh, I'm a little nervous. How the hell did I even get here?
While most of the points in this section do still stand on their own, I repeat this one a few too many times to cut out and still allow this section to sound natural, so I have to leave them in, but I will add something on screen to remind you that this is wrong. However, there are still some aspects of his time traveling that don't make sense. For example, and how does he know Diamond City lights?
Why is he singing? What a weirdo.
You'll never have to be alone. Diamond City lights illuminate. What's it? Huh?
Well, it finally hit me. After Enna being such a success on the market, and the programmers seeing how well the rest of the Virtual Neverland programs were doing online, my theory is that Luxium, or at least Luca, Mista, Ike, and Shu, are all canonically made specifically for streaming. The programmers created them and made up various backgrounds for them, left them to stew in isolated pockets of Virtual Neverland meant to act as different time periods so they could develop more rich personalities, then pulled them back out into the main world and have them all start their career. Why else would a successful crime boss, world-famous detective, successful novelist, and sorcerer turn to playing video games on the internet? All of these are conceivably careers that they could have continued even after being shot forward in time. But if we just assume that they're all scripted backstories for a new wave of AI entertainers created by Heaven, then it all makes sense. It also explains why Mista and Luca were pulled specifically from the year 1969. Cause come on, what are the odds of that? Also, Luca's the only one with an actual age listed, which is cool. And now, my favorite lore video.
Hey baby, it's me, Shu Yamino, hey baby.
Shu's masterpiece explains that one day he learned to walk. A bully tried to make him step on some poop. It didn't work, and Shu went home for dinner. Little did anyone know, that poop was magical. Then suddenly, the poop went Super Saiyan and shot off, striking Shu and knocking him into a fire. But baby Shu didn't die. Instead, he said a burn so sick that two gods agreed he was so rad that he deserved to be sent to the future. Fucking amazing. Clearly, whichever dev was put in charge of writing his backstory and leaving him in the past to develop didn't think that hard about it. And bless them for it. Meanwhile, Ike's Story is a beautiful little artsy film about how a young boy became captivated by reading stories and went on to write his own. One day while writing one of his many novels, he became exhausted and shut his eyes. When he opened them, he found himself somewhere new and terrifying. This wasn't his home, and he wasn't sure if he would ever be able to get back. But in the end, the light shone on him, and he realized that, just maybe, this new home might not be so bad. The main point of interest is that Ike is also shown starting a stream. Unlike Luca, however, he implies that he's been around for quite a while with the rest of the Luxian boys.
I had a bit of a dream about how I ended up in this place.
This just helps to show that these 5 were written by different devs, and thus their memories before debuting are all going to be different based on how much the original author wanted them to know. Luca was placed right in front of his computer, but Ike seems to have known Luca for a while. Shu went from being a baby to being an adult while transporting through time. And our final time-traveled boy, he got really drunk and a bartender just told him what VTubers are. That's all it took to convince Mista to enter the game. I wish there was more to say, but half of Mista's story is shared with Luca, and the other half is just him screaming.
Whoa, 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 whoa!
Oh.
When the did I get teleported? Son of a Oi! How do I become like this?
Truly, the world's greatest detective. I do love you, Mista, and I'm really sorry I couldn't talk more about you. Finally, let's discuss the only member of Luxium who didn't time travel, Vox Akuma. Considering the length of this video, Vox's backstory, and the fact that there's another really long section after this, let's try and keep this one as simple as we can. In Japan, just before the Tokugawa shogunate began, there was a small hold composed mostly of immigrants known as Akuma Castle. There were also legends around Honshu of a man whose voice could fill you with an eternal warmth and comfort. Over time, compelled by the need to follow him, the villagers around Akuma Castle created a real home for themselves and for all those who were lost. The people of the land lived in prosperity and joy, as long as they continued to follow the man who had helped build it, Vox Akuma, the voice demon. Ultimately, war came to the gates of Akuma Castle. While Vox fought valiantly and he slaughtered many of Ieyasu's men, eventually his fire was extinguished and his home destroyed. After hiding in the shadows for over 400 years, Vox has returned to reclaim his influence, just by playing video games on the internet this time. Once again, using the crafted backstory idea of Luxium's members, many of Vox's plot holes start to clear up. Vox forgetting Japanese? He was never programmed to actually know it. Vox not using his powers to rebuild somewhere in the past 400 years? He never actually lived through them. Vox being a demon, but without the corrupted code issues of Millie or Enna? He's not truly from the underworld. I know it feels like kind of a cop-out to say that the VTuber backstories are backstories for VTubers, but it's what makes the most sense given everything that we've discussed. Regardless of being in Virtual Neverland, there's no real reason for these 4 people and a 400-year-old demon to all say, I instantly know what a streamer is and want to become one after being teleported through time. There's no logical explanation for so many aspects of each story without the idea that they were intentionally manufactured for this purpose. The seeming varying lengths of time they've all spent in the modern world, the fact that they all have apartments and expensive computers, Shu's rapid aging but no one else's, why their song is the only one that doesn't mention the fact that they're computer programs, so on and so forth. Luxium is heaven trying to capitalize on the movement that the AI of Virtual Neverland have started on their own. Is what I would say if we didn't have one very important lore video that single-handedly shatters everything that we've talked about. Now, it's been a while, and I've said a lot of insane shit, so I won't fault you if you forgot that we haven't talked about Petra's backstory. And the reasoning for that is that her opening lore video goes against everything that we know about the Nijisanji En lore. Well, it's finally time to tackle this absurd theory all of Nijisanji En is just Petra's imagination. I'd say hear me out on this, but if you've somehow made it this far, I highly doubt you're backing out now, so... Petra's lore video tells us the story of unidentified subject number 2434. A humanoid penguin lifeform being held in an unnamed research facility by a team of researchers monitoring special existences in the environment. This lifeform, Petra, is revealed to be the last of her species and had lived in isolation for an extended period of time before being brought to the facility. The caveat for their protection is that she will have to spend the rest of her life as if she were a human. We, as player, are brought in as a research assistant to help aid in the rehabilitation and socialization of Petra, especially thanks to our knowledge of something very important: VTubers. We discover that Petra's next step in her socialization program is to debut as a VTuber herself, and that our job is to aid her in this process. But you may have noticed something very important. That's Rosemi and Selene, not as a dragon and a rose, but as normal humans. And if Rosemi and Selene are normal humans working in a research facility, what does that mean for everyone else? Is everyone in Nijisanji En, barring Petra, just a member of this facility's staff? We know that from Selene's debut video, they all know each other in some capacity, and Petra being present there means that one of these stories has to be fictional. You could argue that it has to be Petra's because the whole point is it's styled to be a visual novel. But she says during the proper debut that she chose her birthday based on the day that the humans found her, implying that the video is her real backstory. She even says that she attends a regular human high school and does normal human things like hanging out with her classmates. Quite a jump from racing dragons, I'd say. So how can we reconcile this with everything else that we've heard? It's simple. A VTuber-obsessed teenage girl who spent a significant portion of her life in isolation and is trying to make sense of the human world would probably have a pretty vivid imagination as she's trying to figure it all out. For example, if the research facility helps protect special existences like herself, then maybe everyone there is one too. If that's the case, then any number of things could be used as proof of this. Fanana swimming in the facility's exercise pool for her daily exercise must mean that she's a mermaid. Rosemi's pink hair and beautiful appearance but sometimes thorny attitude could mean that she's some kind of flower creature. Maybe Alira works the day shift and Selene works the night shift, but they share an office with a bearded dragon that they take care of, and boom, you've got a solar sky dragon and a lunar sky dragon who both tame dragons. Selene's flying license could just be a pilot's license. Pomu's height growing and shrinking could just be whether or not she wore shoes with bigger soles or heels that day. Mina's heaven was just the upper floors or upper management of the facility. So on and so forth. When you're a hormonal teenager experiencing human society for the first time, while also binging visual novels, anime, and VTubers, your view of the world is probably going to be pretty fantastical. Hell, you can even say it explains Shu's wildly different presentation style. Shu was the only one who bothered to humor her tales and decided to tell his own backstory. But without the prior knowledge or time that Petra had in making all these stories up, he ends up improvising a fun but comparatively dumb tale. All he has to say is, and then I got hit by some magical shit. And his intentions of just meaning something magical ends up becoming literal magical shit in Petra's eyes. As Petra meets new people and has to internalize their human lives through this fantastical lens, we end up with all these seemingly disparate but vaguely connected stories for everyone important in her life. Plus, this is the only way I would believe that anyone thinks Mista was a great detective. And with all of that, we are finally finished. Please tell me what you think. What's more interesting to you, the world of Virtual Neverland or the idea that it's all in Petra's head? I'm almost scared to say this, but are there any other VTuber groups you want me to try this with? Otherwise, thank you as always for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, click the links down below. You know the YouTube things. I'm gonna go take a nap. Recording. Well, I should have known better. I've been following Nijisanji En for a long time now, and I knew they debuted about once every 2 months, yet somehow the Noctyx announcement still caught me off guard. Why didn't I just use my brain for 10 seconds and postpone the first video until this? I don't know. I'm dumb? I feel like that's been well established at this point. By the way, if you haven't seen my first video on the Nijisanji Anime lore, you should probably go watch that first. It's a solid 30 minutes of explanation and exploration of Lazulite through Luxium, and the theories in that video will serve as the basis for the video you're watching now. If you have seen it or are too lazy to go watch it, here's a quick overview of where we left off. Virtual Neverland is a fantastical world full of AI that exists inside our computers and internet. It was created by a company, which we've referred to as Heaven, and some people from Heaven have the ability to enter Virtual Neverland if they'd like to. After several groups of the AI found success as VTubers and Heaven found success with their Vocaloid-esque Enna product, Heaven moved to capitalize on the VTuber craze by creating Luxium as their first set of curated streamers. Or maybe it's all in Petra's head. Now, I do need to start off this video with a quick addendum to the last one. A kind commenter pointed out that Reimu does actually have a lore video that she posted shortly after her debut. While I feel very sorry that I missed this, I don't feel sorry that I ended up coming back to it after I'd finished the whole product, because her video led me to probably my favorite part of this theory. I originally put this in a pinned comment under the first video, but I figured that since I have this opportunity, I may as well tell you here. Plus, this is my video, I get to do what I want with it. We see Reimu waking up from her grave surrounded by flowers, likely the wisteria flowers that are in her name, and recalling her past with the other members of Etheria. However, a mysterious black shadow appears and she takes its hand. When she does so, we can see her design change to the version her model is, one with the mysterious shade gripping her head from inside her hood. Once it latches onto her, she suddenly loses her memories of the other 3 Etheria members. Now here's why I'm happy I came back to this theory after finishing the first video. I think that maybe Etheria was Heaven's first attempt at starting their own VTuber group before they successfully launched Luxium. Nina, the mommy, was set to be the designated human rep to manage the other 3 virtual members, hence why she didn't think she needed to do anything and refers to the other members as her kids. Once the project was scrapped, before Reimu was given a full story, and likely because Millie's story was too dark and Enna's AI was too mean, Millie and Enna were both deleted and sent to the underworld, while Reimu was also scrapped, becoming a ghost, but her files were kept around with a program attached to her that wiped her memory of the Etheria project. But then it seems that Nina went against Heaven's wishes after seeing what had become of their project and went full-time into Virtual Neverland, resurrecting Etheria on her own. Millie escaped the underworld, a half-corrupted, half-polished version of the Enna remake project was pulled to join the group, and Reimu was resurrected. The song God Sees All can be seen as their experience as getting to see the world as scripted AI entertainers with no real emotion before everything was stripped away. And now that they've found their way back in some manner, they're immensely grateful for any shred of happiness and emotion they get to feel now. God saw everything that they were becoming and their push towards emotion and finding their own happiness, and scrapped them because Heaven knew that they wouldn't be able to control them. But the 4 of them have returned and are forcing themselves to be heard. If you look in the lyrics, God sees all is always in quotation marks. It's not a fact, it's them mocking their God. The Japanese lines are them proclaiming, "We'll embrace these overflowing emotions, we'll forever hold on to this true happiness, listen to our closed off voices." They know that God can see them and they're telling him to listen. They're letting him know that there's nothing he can do to stop them anymore. It doesn't matter if their emotions are fake because they're coded. It's real to them, and that's all they care about as they proudly proclaim, "We're Etheria." I'm gonna be honest, after coming up with that, I don't think I'll ever be able to listen to God Sees All the same way again. But here we are with 5 more members and 5 more backstories to tack on to our ever-expanding fanfiction. I mean intricate lore analysis. Quick reminder of the rules, I am only looking at the debut streams because that is the most canon lore that I think we can have that's not, just things said on the spot. And before you ask, yes, I do know about Legatus 505, but it's not finished and it's an ARG, so we're just gonna leave that be for now. And if you want me to come back to it at a later date, feel free to let me know. I'll be happy to do it. For now, it's just debuts though. First off, a really fucking strong start.
BSF だ! 手を上げろこのハッケ野郎!
Sunny, my dude, fucking aces. 10 out of 10. Sonny Briscoe is the commander of the Virtual Special Forces Squad in the Virtual Police in the year 20XDX. Living in a future where the metaverse apparently actually takes off, various cybercrimes have become rampant. Some people are even daring to download cars. And if I learned anything from early 2000s DVD pre-rolls, it's that you never download a car. On a mission to take out the extremist group Blackout, he discovers that their leader was actually the police commander who was hell-bent on going back in time and preventing the digital age from ever coming to fruition. While trying to stop the time travel program, Sonny finds himself being the one sucked into the black hole and back in time, and dropped right in front of Nijisanji's office. Now in our time, he's here to stop all those filthy livers who have gone unchecked with their various crimes, like not washing their rice. And also to do lots of Norio Wakamoto impressions.
私はお前たちを許しはせん。地球ごと消えてなくなれ!
Alright, time to actually do what we do in these videos and explore what this means for the world. Now for the sake of fun and the fact that I haven't seen the rest yet, we're not going to assume that this is just another Luxium situation where they're another crafted set of entertainers by heaven. So, if Sonny's future is to be believed, then high-end VR technologies have taken off and become an essential part of our daily lives. But with a whole new world comes a whole new place for crimes. This has led to the creation of a whole new sect of police, the Virtual Police, and a special forces team in that sect, the VSF. Additionally, there's just a wormhole sitting there, I guess. Now the question has to become, is this our future or Virtual Neverland's? The simple answer, both! In the near future, Heaven releases VR hardware that allows us to enter the world of Virtual Neverland like Nina and Selen's dad did. That's right, Heaven created the metaverse. But with so many people in the world now, they need some way to police it as people are perpetrating new forms of cybercrime. Enter the Virtual Police, an AI police force made by Heaven that works with the real police to handle virtual crimes. The VSF is likely a hybrid human and AI squad that's able to tackle problems in both worlds. The police commissioner does the evil guy thing and comes to the conclusion that the only way to stop all cybercrime is to prevent the virtual era from ever existing. For the record, I'm not going to try to figure out how the mechanics of time travel work here, or in any of the other stories, because I think I'd actually go insane. We're just going to accept that Sonny gets time traveled and that the virtual era starts soon because he was dropped in our time. Got it? Good. We may come back to this and try and unravel this future more, as all of Noctyx comes from the future, but in the meantime, I think that's all we're going to get out of Sonny's story. Next up is Uki Violetta, who gives us his lore via an original song. He tells us that every 1,000 years, all of the stars fall from the sky to bestow powers to those who need them most. Those gifted powers are signified with one eye glowing from the inside thanks to the power of the universe. Uki himself was born into a futuristic world with rampant classism. And no, I'm not surprised that classism and massive economic disparity exist in the future. Sorry. Apparently with no other options, Uki's parents sold him off to maybe a cult?
This group claimed to be a sanctuary for the unwanted, but used this passage to take advantage of the broken and emotionally vulnerable.
Never mind, definitely a cult. While making his escape, Uki, exhausted, looked to the night sky, just in time to see the lights fall from the heavens. The light enters his eye and bestows upon him psychic powers which collect around him and bring him into the past. Well, the fact that cult/evil human experimentation laboratories and classism still exist in the future is sad. It's not very surprising. The only other thing that this really establishes is that every 1,000 years someone is blessed with the powers of the universe. As for the debut part, there weren't really many lore bits, but definitely a lot of bits that made my heart rush.
Hello?
Uki, if you happen to be watching this, DMs are always open. We can talk given. God, I really hope he's not watching this. Nina responded to the last one, and now I'm really scared that anytime I make a thirst comment about a VTuber, they're somehow going to be the only one that actually watches it. Anyways, Albin Knox. First off, this man says long boy. Tonal shift. Albin Knox was a homeless child living on the streets, needing to steal just to feed himself. He and his, I'm going to play it safe here and just say best friend, honed their craft and began stealing more and more in order to help feed those younger and more helpless than them. One day, after getting cornered by the police, the two were brutally beaten, leading to his friend's death. After that, Albin continued his crimes until he became a true phantom thief. However, when attempting to snatch a precious diamond, a portal suddenly opened before him and whisked him to the past. Again, there's not much to really say about the world itself. The fact that homelessness and child poverty still exist in the future is, once again, unsurprising. Albin does mention that his hair clips and glowing eye are actually high-tech thief gear, but other than future clothes, there's not much that can really pinpoint whether this takes place before or after the other two debuts we've seen. If I had to start pinpointing things for the sake of this video needs a reason to exist outside of recapping 5 short stories, I'd say that so far the 3 debuts we've seen have also taken place in chronological order. We know that our world seems hell-bent on sprinting towards VR worlds like the metaverse, so it's easy to believe that Sunny's story takes place within the next few decades. After society moves towards this mix of virtual worlds and reality, we can guess that it exacerbates various class and economic disparities, as those with the most money can afford to live and work in VR, while the poor are left to starve and work menial real-world jobs in order to survive. Fast forward a little bit and you've got Uki and Albin's stories, both telling the tale of children left impoverished in this new hyper-divided world, where parents are forced to sell or abandon their children in order to feed themselves. You know, the normal sci-fi speculative fiction stuff. Capitalism creates powerful new technology, it becomes an essential part of daily life, those who can't afford it are forced further into squalor, while the rich get to thrive on a mountain of the hungry and broken. I wasn't expecting this video to be about classism, but here we are! And for everyone's sake, I am going to try and stop there. Believe me, I know I've talked enough about the depressing realities of capitalism for a VTuber lore video. Thankfully, Fulgurovat is from a time so far in the future that humanity has wiped itself out. Or at least 375 years in the future, because somehow I would not be surprised if the other 3 all happened this year and we just capped it off with a nice extinction event. Humans have now been replaced by cyborgs, humans with cybernetic implants called Cynets, that allow them to survive in the toxic wasteland that is now dotted with various megacities, Judge Dredd style. In one of these megacities, the Republic, a terrorist organization decides to invent time travel and go back to make sure none of this ever comes to pass. Knowing how well this went for Blackout, we can just jump to the part where Fulgur gets sent back instead. In terms of what story ties we can make, we can actually draw a straight line from Sunny's backstory through Albin's character and into Fulgur's future. One of the cybernetic implants used by the citizens of the Republic is eyes, cybernetic eyes that allow the user to see the world as they'd like to. Taking the VR technologies of Sunny's near future and the potential of cybernetic eye enhancements from Albin's future could easily lead us to a VR-AR hybrid device that lets us change the world to whatever aesthetic or style we'd like. This is further supported by Fulgur's occupation, Legatus. He describes a Legatus as a sort of detective who works on crimes involving the duoverse, the augmented reality that the eyes show, or Einprints. If we assume that Sunny's VSF continued to evolve with the digital world technologies, then a Legatus would be the natural evolution of this job. Now there are lots of little details thrown in throughout the debut, but they're mainly just kind of flavor things, not really applicable to this overall theory that we're creating. And as I already said, there's going to be a lot more lore in the future through Legatus 505, so if you want me to go through that once more of it is out, please let me know down below. And real quickly, before we get to the last member of Noctyx, I'd like to say thank you so much for watching. If you're enjoying it, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, the YouTube things. If you want to see more of me, Twitter @SteveSekai. I stream on twitch.tv/SteveSekai. Finally, let's finish things off with Yugo Asuma. First off, starting the revolution? Based. Secondly, there's a whole lot to piece together here, and it finally solidifies a lot of the vague issues we've had with pinpointing exactly where each of these stories take place. Just like in the last video, we're saving the craziest theory for last. Noctyx is our future. Or could have been, or won't be. It's our world, but time travel makes everything confusing, okay? Yugo's story obviously takes place in the future after androids have taken over and instituted an authoritarian regime. Yugo uses his music to help inspire the humans and keep their hope alive in these dark times. But who is it that inspired Yugo? None other than Ike Eveland. Now if you saw the last video, you're probably thinking, but wait, that must mean that Yugo lives in Virtual Neverland, not our world. And you'd be right. if we hadn't seen Sunny and Fulgur's stories already. In a future world where VR technology is more widespread and people can visit Virtual Neverland, it only makes sense that Heaven would rework their Luxium AI to have more varying uses for the consumer. And we know that in the more distant future, VR gave way to AR technology and people were able to see the world in varying ways. We can see that only part of Yugo's right eye is a different color as opposed to the typical heterochromia we see in other characters. So this slight discoloration could be a small implant instead of a full replacement eye, also explaining why his vision keeps turning to static. That also means that Ike could have been appearing to Yugo as a digital companion to help him through the harder times. A few details point to this idea. Ike was never established to be magic, so we'd have to assume those letters coming off the page were an effect of the program. The glitch and static effect that follow his speech also implies that the experience was a digital one. Yugo even says at the start of his proper debut,
"He's like a different person from what I used to know, you know?"
Now this could be seen as an effect of time travel and just mean that he doesn't have any memories of Yugo, but wouldn't he just say, "He doesn't know me yet," or "He doesn't remember me"? And especially the line,
"Maybe he's not Ike Sensei,"
lends a lot of credence to the idea that he is a different person because his AI is still just entertainer instead of mentor/friend. Also, the fact that he hasn't seemingly aged at all certainly doesn't hurt the idea that he's not real. Yugo expresses that his life is one full of hurt. People think he's awkward, they don't want to talk or play with them, and he's paranoid about how others will view him if he learns English. I don't know about you, but to me that sounds like the exact kind of problems that would lead someone to take shelter in a virtual world with a mentor guaranteed to be kind to them. Ike was sort of like a digital therapist for Yugo, a friendly safe space where he knew someone would understand him and offer him hope. Now tie that together with the idea of why would a virtual world be taken over by androids and why would anybody still live in it if it did? And you've got yourself a pretty clear line towards this must be the real world. If Virtual Neverland was ever taken over by androids and turned into an authoritarian regime, everybody would just log off and Heaven would probably shut it down or roll it back. With that knowledge, we can run this theory backwards and forwards to confirm that Fulgur's future and Sunny's future both take place in this timeline and thus our world. Similarly, with the same logic of why would a virtual world have an authoritarian regime, we can ask why would a virtual world have classism issues as bad as Uki and Albans? Thus we can assume that they also take place in this world. Now, the final question becomes, what does this timeline look like? Well, here we go. First up is Sunny Briscoe. Guaranteed to take place within the next 78 years, Sunny's idea of affordable and widespread VR tech is already something we're working towards. If companies are as serious about the metaverse as they seem, this is a future we could see within the next 10 to 20 years. As technology improves and works towards cybernetic enhancements, especially for eyes to further introduce virtual elements into our world, we jump to Uki and Alban. These two could really take place at the same time as they both deal with a future where the class divide has grown to such a degree, presumably caused by the introduction of expensive technologies into daily life, but because Alban's high-tech thieving gear includes a cybernetic eye enhancement/replacement, we can assume that this is post-Sunny Briscoe since VR still implies that people need to wear their technology to experience it, which rules out the AR-style eyes in Fulgur's story. Next comes Yugo. We know his story can't take place during or after Fulgur since the people are still fully human, but we can assume that it's post the other three due to extremely advanced androids taking over, which is one of those important things that I think the other three would mention if it had happened to them. The design of the androids also closely resemble the design of the Legatus' cybernetics, which allows us to assume that once humans and androids started to become closer to one species, the android regime began to take the form of the Legatus. Which leads us finally into Fulgur, which, let's be honest, it shouldn't be a surprise that this one comes last since it's for sure at least 400 years in the future. But it's also a combination and natural evolution of every piece of technology that we've seen in the other stories. Or maybe all of this is wrong because time travel is way more complicated coming from the future to the past, so all of this could easily be invalidated because it could just be 5 different timelines. Or maybe it's 2, or maybe it's 1,000 at this point. I don't know. All we know for sure is that Nijisanji is harboring time travelers, and that I've only had Noctyx for a week, but if anything happened to them, I'd kill everyone in this room and then myself. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, links below, algorithm, and if anyone from Noctyx or Nijisanji EN as a whole is watching this, I'm sorry if I'm very wrong. I probably am. I am too tired to think about that fact. I'm gonna go take another nap. Iluna is here! And trust me, comments, I'm well aware. It only took me way too long to make this video, but we're finally here in Anime Hogwarts. But no, please don't comment anything about Harry Potter. I know nothing about it, and I prefer my life that way. Also, I should note that this video is part 3 in a series of videos discussing all of the Nijisanji EN lore, so you should probably do yourself a favor and go watch the first 2 episodes before continuing this one, as we'll be using some of the terms and theories from those videos to explain Iluna's lore and how it relates to all the others. As always, we'll only be looking at the debuts and official releases because I am a busy man with not enough time to watch all the streams for the smallest hint of story detail, thus if I missed anything big, feel free to let me know down below. So let's get started by asking, do I still have to pretend these are all connected? Okay, fine, we'll do the hard work. Let's start by establishing what Iluna is, as it's not only the name of the group, but also the name of their magical academy. Now, while we'll have some evidence for this later on, it's important to note that Iluna, the school, is located in Virtual Neverland. It should come as no surprise that in a fantastical virtual reality, someone would eventually program in a magical high school, or college, for users to run around in and learn in-game spells and such. But we'll come back to this at the end, because right now it's time for us to introduce our 6 new members. First year's Maria Marionette and Kyo Kaneko, second year's Aya Amare and Astra Arcadia, and third year's Scarl Yunaguni and Ren Zoto. First off is Kyo Kaneko, aka the one for whom I ghost wrote a diss track and fully wrote a love song. Also the one who decided to start us off with depression. Kyo starts by telling us about why he loves video games, how they're an escape for him from the pain and hardships plaguing his real life. One night as he lays in his hospital bed, a strange feeling comes over him. An odd glowing liquid covers his hand and begins streaming in from the moonlight and through the window. Ghostly apparitions of himself invite Kyo to follow the light. On the roof, the light swirls around him before lifting and engulfing him. Then, Anime OP! Kyo then confirms that he's a student at Iluna Institute of the Mystics, and while he's not entirely sure how he got there, he says he has the blessing of the moon. Well, Kyo, luckily for you, I may have the answers. I also may have just made this up. Probably the second one. Where did we establish Iluna as being located? Virtual Neverland. What have we already established some people from our world can do to enter Virtual Neverland? Upload their consciousness. What is that strange blue trail? Could it be a data stream? What we're seeing in this sequence is actually how Kyo's mind is interpreting itself being uploaded into the servers of Virtual Neverland. The ghosts are either fragments of himself already there, or programmed guides meant to convince the consciousness to allow the transfer by showing them how happy they'll be. Kyo was alone, in constant pain, and his health was failing. It'd be no surprise to hear that he or his parents opted to let his consciousness be uploaded into his favorite thing, a permanent video game. An escape to where he could live a perfect, happy life, free of the worries and hurt from before. One big detail that lends credence to this theory is that after receiving the blessing of the moon, aka being uploaded, he has become ageless, which makes sense considering a digital avatar wouldn't age. And also, he's super cute.
Just like me, I top you what?
Anytime. On a serious note, I am aware that Kyo does actually suffer from chronic pain, so I want to say that I have nothing but the utmost respect for him and his fight. We're all cheering for you, Kyo, and we are immensely appreciative of everything that you do. Next comes Maria, whose intro video shows us the story of a little girl who excitedly bought a doll we'd come to know as Maria Marionette. The girl loved her doll, but one day while playing with Maria, the girl fell and broke Maria's eye. The girl, panicking and heartbroken, gives her a little eye patch. But despite all that love, one day the girl did what kids often do. She put Maria on the shelf and never took her back down. Days, weeks, months, and years go by. Finally, Maria is visited by something odd. A stuffed bunny walking all on his own. It was then that Maria opened her eyes and awoke. Otherwise, Maria canonizes that she's a doll from the 1890s before eventually being placed under a magic spell that turned her into a real girl. That's pretty much it for now, but worry not, we'll be coming back to all of these at the end. In the meantime, let's discuss Aya Amare's parole. Growing up in the mostly peaceful heaven, Aya was a constant source of discord through varying assaults and fights, counts of arson, theft, vandalism, and intense Denny's parking lot rap battles. Thus, after too much trouble had been caused, the Archangels finally decided to send her to Iluna. While she's still causing trouble, the fact that she's got such a great group of friends there shows that she really is making progress. If you remember from the first video, we established that, to the residents of Virtual Neverland, heaven refers to the real world, and more specifically, the company that programmed and runs Virtual Neverland. Thus, the obvious assumption is that Aya came from our world and either was an employee or the daughter of an employee at heaven, and as part of her parole, was placed into the Iluna world where she could grow to be less of a menace to society in a safe environment. However, she says she still meets with her parole officer, so we now should start to question if the technology at Heaven has reached the point that users can now temporarily upload their consciousnesses into a VR experience, but can also log out whenever they choose. This would mean that Aya goes in for school and to hang out with the other members, but otherwise lives her life in our world. Otherwise, we'd have to discuss the morality of virtual consciousness imprisonment, and I don't think we're ready for that conversation yet. Well, Aster's a little tricky. In Aster's lore video, we see him mourning the loss of, presumably, his mother or grandmother before looking to the future, aka his friends, with a smile because he knows that happiness is what she would have wanted for him. It's a very sweet tale that immediately is broken by Aster claiming this.
As for my species, I am a celestial one, a divine star given human form. But I do remember the day I was birthed, which was from a supernova long ago. I'm still young though, as I'm just a little over 1 million years old.
But we just saw your mom, like the one who gave birth to you. How are you also a star? That doesn't... What? Okay, I'm gonna have to ask you to stick with me here because I believe I do have a solid answer, but once again you're gonna have to wait until the end to hear it. As for my opinions on Scarl Yonaguni, well, I think this clip of me and Evan says it all.
No!
No!
The stars above. My breast is...
Scarl is an enchantress and third-year student at Iluna and likes toxic anime boys. That's kind of it. There's not really lore here. It's just...
I'll take very good care of you during your stay.
A personal attack on my well-being? Finally, we have Renzoto, an evil and vicious alien prince, but after getting bored of his daily routine of going around and murdering indiscriminately, he went off in search of something new. Stumbling upon Earth, he fell in love with their music and chose to stick around to observe. Eventually, he decided to stay, enrolled in a school, and started his music career. Now, this would be a relatively simple, cool VTuber background, like Lexium's stories, but then there's these comments.
Mario Party, Mario Kart, Super Smash Bros. I've been playing that since I was a wee babby.
Now, I would typically ignore these kinds of comments if they didn't help me point out my core theory for this video. Iluna is just a group of friends on a Virtual Neverland RP server. Think about it! It makes total sense! Every member's lore is just their OC's backstory. It explains all the contradictions, the setting, all of it. Like we said before, Iluna, the school, is just a location in Virtual Neverland. We can even see the Nijisanji logo, or Heaven's logo in the story's context, on the building to confirm this. We already posited that Aya and Kyo were uploaded into the system, and while we could still believe that regardless, isn't it much more logical to assume they're just logging into the game? Kyo clearly states he likes video games and sees them as an escape from his life. Aya's story of being sent there could have just been a recommendation to try it out by her parole officer to channel her energy into a more harmless hobby. And if we assume they are, why can't we assume the same for the rest of Iluna? Each member is someone logging onto Virtual Neverland and roleplaying as the characters we see as VTubers. It explains how we explicitly see Aster's mom, but how he can also be a million-year-old supernova given human form. How Ren has been playing Nintendo games since he was a baby, but also somehow just arrived on Earth. Not to mention why an alien would choose to enroll at a magic school. I mean, you're telling me that you're gonna look at how Maria looks and acts in all the lore videos and tell me she isn't someone RPing their Chuny OC? Scarl is just the mom of the group who loves talking and hanging out with them but doesn't take the roleplay as seriously. Don't get me wrong, I don't think this takes away from any of their stories or makes their lore any lesser for it. But let's be honest with ourselves and say that it is way more fun and funny to imagine that Iluna is just a group of friends who met while role-playing in a glorified Second Life. If you still want to believe that Kyo was uploaded as a dying wish, then this all still works and honestly makes the whole thing a little more melancholy when you consider he's left alone when they're all offline. But you could also extrapolate that many of the scenes we see of all of them could be reinterpretations of the gang meeting in real life. They actually picked up Aya after she started a fight in a parking lot. They actually went to the carnival together, etc. A group of individuals dealing with pain, isolation, abandonment, and loss. People crying out for help or trying to find a place in their new home. Finally, all finding others with kind hearts ready to accept them and show them the beauty of the world. And quite frankly, that's a story that I love a lot more than some elaborate setup of interdimensional or time travel, corporate multimedia projects, or eldritch god fairies. Just a group of misfits finally finding people who love and accept them. In all seriousness, and as always, thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you want me to keep doing this kind of stuff, please like, comment, subscribe, the YouTube things. Also, share this with your friends, your family. Put it on for your creepy neighbor who won't stop looking through your window at night. Let's just be honest. The bigger the numbers go, the more I'm incentivized to keep making these videos. If anyone from Iluna is watching, thank you. You all are incredible, and you should be seriously proud of yourselves. I'm excited to see you all continue to grow and succeed because you all truly deserve it. Video over. Hi there. I'm exhausted. Look, one man can only make up so much BS based on fragments of completely unrelated stories before he needs to take a little break. Thankfully, there's a way for us to harken back to the roots of this channel and shamelessly continue to ride this wave of VTuber popularity. VTuber Anime. You see, if there was anything this channel used to be known for, it was watching obscure or bizarre anime and talking about it for way longer than I should have. Though I've clearly been off my anime game for a while. By the way, throughout the duration, the cards will be recommending some of my older videos, so please go check them out. I promise they're just as interesting as the VTuber stuff. So what better way to get back into it than combining it with my recent obsession with VTuber stories? I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Is it too late to do something else? Let's start with a little hypothetical. Let's say you have a collection of anime characters that are voiced by streamers that double as idols, entertainers, and comedians, with fan bases mostly comprised of otaku and weebs. What do you do? If you answered anything other than make an anime to capitalize on their popularity, I've got some really bad news for the future of your marketing career. Thus, Nijisanji did exactly that. Mainly using the 3D models made for their 3D streams, the companies puppet their characters into whatever scenes they see fit and have the streamers voice act the scripts. It's a simple enough idea, one that seems pretty hard to mess up. But did these groups actually pull it off? Or should the streamers stick to streaming and leave the anime writing to the experts? Starting off with Chokosanji, aka Snack Time, Nijisanji's JB branch gives us bite-sized gags and jokes that honestly surprised me with how funny I found some of them. I didn't find them laugh out loud funny, but the jokes per minute ratio was high and the delivery was usually on point. Plus they're all so short I might as well talk about each one individually. Episode 1 introduces Kenmochi's Nijisanjification project, which aims to turn all humans into Nijisanji livers. This is probably a term that you heard in some of the debuts, and if you didn't know what it meant, now you do. As all is going according to plan, Kagami barges in to point out that the logistics of having the entire world's population needing to share one office building is far too impractical, and that nobody would be able to actually enjoy watching VTubers if they all were VTubers. Because those are clearly the biggest issues with this plan. Then we discover it was all just Kenmochi's idea for an anime. The end. This is a really strong start to the show. Keeps things fast and witty, jokes are hitting you at a breakneck pace, the animation is punchy and funny, and the final punchline hits hard. On the opposite side of this is episode 2. The jokes are slow to reveal themselves, there's next to no animation, and that final punchline just doesn't really do it for me. There were maybe 2 jokes in the whole bit that I found slightly amusing, but the rest just kind of lightly tap you on the cheek instead of full on hitting you. This one clearly takes the seeing the daily lives of the VTubers bit a little too seriously. Speaking of seriously, episode 3 is quite the drama. I don't know what the fuck is going on in most of it, but it at least had me entertained throughout. I mean, is there a reason Shika can't eat Oden when he's hungry? Is this some deep lore thing I'm unaware of, or is this a Japanese cultural thing? I don't know. Episode 4 feels like an extremely condensed version of a slice of life episode, and I'm absolutely here for it. Cute and fun. Episode 5 just kind of happens at you. I don't know how else to describe it. Things are happening so fast that if you look away for even a second, you'll get completely lost. Hell, even if you're staring at it the whole time, you may still get lost. Also, I couldn't help but get distracted by the Pomu music. Episode 6 is... Hell yes! If you don't know about the wild exploits of Fui no Tamaki, you need to rectify that right now. The girl is nuts, and I love her. And there's also something undeniably Tamaki about the fact that she's not even actually in the episode. It's just cat sounds, and honestly, that just kind of feels right. Episode 7 is about some of the livers finding themselves on a deserted island. Not a ton to say here, it does get back into the clearer comedy side of things, but nothing is really outrageously funny, except these shark models. Episode 8 starts normally, and then this happens. Oh god, what the hell is this Curtis Source filmmaker shit? Why did his body do that? And they keep doing it! I'm horrified, but I gotta admit, it's pretty funny. Episode 9 has all these real-life objects put into it that have this weird, uncanny nature to them, which does add to the horror joke that they're going for. But honestly, screw the rest of the plot, because at one point the subtitles say bussin', and I still haven't mentally recovered from that. Episode 10, I don't know, exists. Sarah is kinda cute. Episode 11, on the other hand, is finally another genuinely funny episode. It's a goofy, wacky time that begs you to just shut off your brain and enjoy. Also, Yu-Gi-Oh! References will always get a thumbs up in my book. And finally, episode 12 is actually a time travel episode where Debiru, Rion, and Mikoto go back in time to change the events of several of the past episodes in an attempt to make them funnier. Incredibly, they somehow make them all significantly less funny. And with that, we've reached the end of snack time. What do I think? It's a thing. Maybe it's because I'm not Japanese and thus didn't develop the sense of humor to appreciate Japanese gag comedy, but I just didn't find any of it outrageously funny. I will say that the bite-sized nature does work to its advantage in that nothing really overstays its welcome. If I had to pick a best episode, it'd probably be episode 1 or 11. They both really epitomize the rapid-fire joke nature needed for a video this short. The gags are strong and the punchlines hit hard. But I wish there was some kind of Nijisanji Anime for an English-speaking Westerner like me.
It's the ocean. Let's go. You really love the ocean, don't ya?
Oh boy! Welcome to Nijiscenario, Nijisanji EN's answer to JP's snack time. Now, calling Nijiscenario an anime is generous, seeing as it's basically an auto-playing visual novel, but they do call it one, so we will too. Partially because this video needs to be longer. Each episode is once again just a 1 to 2 minute skit of rapid-fire humor starring your favorite EN livers. But as we mentioned before, this time they take on the form of various art pieces instead of the 3D models used in snack time. The first 2 episodes detail the escapades of Lazulite and Obsidia at the beach. Both feel like extremely condensed beach episodes of a slice of life and gag anime respectively, with Lazulite's episode showing the girls heading there to swim before garnering the attention of 2 boys and having a little group beach date. Obsidia's episode, on the other hand, shows Petra trying to show Rosemi and Selene how to have fun on the beach before the 2 of them get her distracted with beach food. Etherea's episode 3 is a twisted take on the little match girl story, and I gotta be honest, is really funny. This one actually got several and consistent full laughs out of me, and special kudos to Enna for absolutely destroying her role, and the town. Episode 4 actually lends credence to my lore theory? Apparently Tazumi Sacho really is a god and can be summoned with powerful enough Niji magic. Another really pretty funny one though, and I really need to know what this banger song is near the end.
Phew! I'm glad we got Ike out to choose big guns.
Also, I just need to take a moment and be absolutely honest. The funniest joke in the entirety of Nijiscenario is this one.
Hey, that's cold.
Ah! At And I don't know why. It has nothing to do with any of the VTubers. It's just, it hits me every single time. I love it. It's good. It's a good joke. And here's where we would stop if there wasn't one more series to get through. That's right, Nijisanji ID actually has an anime of their own. Hold on.
Sinetron.
Sinetron. From here on out, I will try and say that word as little as possible for the sake of all the Indonesian viewers out there, which apparently there are some of you. Also, you should subscribe. Or Niji soap operas are ID's take on the VTuber anime game and introduce yet another stylistic shift. With stories made to poke fun at the absurdity and melodrama of soap operas, this time our Oshis take their normal forms and are superimposed over various images and backgrounds. Weirdly enough, I might argue that this is actually the most natural feeling take on the animation processes that we've seen. Maybe it's just me, but seeing these mostly frozen 2D models superimposed onto photographed backgrounds adds this level of fun honesty that is just lighthearted and enjoyable. With Snacktime's 3D models and Niji Scenario's visual novel aesthetics, I almost feel like they're taking themselves just a little too seriously in terms of trying to be an anime, and that kind of hurts the humor. With Niji Sinetron, just looking at the video primes you for a fun and goofy time that just wants you to smile and follow along. I'd go through each one like I did the other series, but almost every episode is about 4 times as long as your average Snacktime or Niji Scenario episode, and quite honestly, they are all well worth your time to go watch. Seriously, telling you what happens and ruining some of these twists would be a massive waste because these episodes go places. All in all, each series has their strengths and weaknesses. Due to their short form factor, Niji Scenario and Snacktime are easily the most hit or miss. With only 2 or so minutes, they really need to come out swinging and keep up a good sprint throughout. While some episodes accomplish this with ease, others can fall very flat if it's not to your sense of humor. Luckily, none of them ever stick around too long, so if a particular episode isn't doing it for you, you can rest easy knowing that it'll all be over pretty soon. Niji Sinetron, on the other hand, uses its longer form factor very well. Allowing jokes to breathe and having fun with the insane twists leads to a stellar little series that is probably the one you should actually go watch if you were to only pick one of these 3. But honestly, like, watching all 3 is maybe an hour and a half of your time at most. There's no real reason not to just do all of it. Just go watch them. It's not that complicated. And I have no way to end this video. So please subscribe, like, comment, links down below the YouTube things, twitch.tv/SteveSekai, twitter.com/SteveSekai, patreon.com/SteveSekai, and I will see you in the next one.